I think, before. Okay. Now I'm going to go live over here. Are you feeling ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. All righty, here we are. Good morning. How is it going?
It is wonderful here in Kentucky.
There we go. All right. You guys having much of a spring yet? You guys having much of a spring yet there in Kentucky?
Yes, it's the typical Kentucky spring. It's feels like it's like in the 60s or 70s here. It'll get hot and cold. It's rainy. It's wet and cool, which is great. I like just cool.
Oh, looks like we lost you for just a second there. But I am a little jealous of your weather. We're already heating up here in Phoenix. I think our high today is in the 90s, which is nice because it's not too hot yet, but it will be getting hotter for sure. All right. Well, gosh, I am so excited about this conversation and about sharing this information with the women in the Microdosing Moms group, the listeners on our podcast. This is our very first podcast episode of the Sacred Microdose, and it is exciting. I'm so excited to be here. Man.
Yeah, I had a kind of an improv song to share as people are joining and just to kind of open up this podcast. And as I say often in ceremony, this will be the first time you're hearing this, and it'll probably be the last, because they just the frequency is channeled through me from nature, and so every time it's different. So I'll just do a quick little intro song, and yeah, I can't wait to get into the content. It seems like there was a lot of interest, and so we're super excited to talk about dosage today.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Grizz. That was beautiful.
I think we're ready.
Okay. We are ready. Awesome. Well, our very first inaugural podcast episode is all about that dose. One of the biggest questions that I get from moms joining our group is, how much to take, or maybe they're feeling some adverse symptoms from what they are taking and they're not sure how to adjust their dose or when to adjust their dose. So I thought it would be really helpful and timely for us to come on and just have a chat about all the different types of doses when you're talking about psilocybin or magic mushrooms, and also when they might be useful. Also, things like tracking and how often to take it, and we'll get into some more details. And then at the end, we'll talk about some of the biggest mistakes that I see people get tripped up with when they are on a microdosing journey through all my conversations with moms. So I'm super excited to get started and jump in because this is our first episode, and because we also have a lot of new people in the group that may not be familiar with us and who we are. Let's maybe take a couple minutes and introduce ourselves and a little more about our background. So Grizz, go ahead and share with us a little about who you are and what you bring to our conversation today.
Yeah, well, my life is just magical. I have the best life, and the magical connection that Amanda and I have and how we connected is just a testament to, living this dream life where every day is just more joy, more beauty. There are challenges and ups and downs, but through this sacred medicine, Amanda talks about it a lot, but I really feel like it softens your hard edges. And I say that a lot with this medicine. I think that's one of the biggest things is it softens those hard edges, those reactions, uh, among a list of other things. But for me, in my experience, that's what it's done, and it's allowed me to have a better relationship with the people that are close to me. So I've been in this space for 6 years, a little over 6 years, as far as ceremonial doses and working with the indigenous and the different medicine men out of South America. I would say I feel like I've been in this space all my life, really, since I was a kid. My connection to nature and talking to trees and talking to animals, talking to the wind and having the wind respond back to me in my communication. Very magical, even with the animals. And that's something that I'm really excited to share in the mentorship, especially the higher level mentorship, where we're getting more into the magical, mystical side of this medicine and being able to talk to animals and have them respond back. And so that's something that I'm really passionate about. And we've led over 200 private ceremonies with the medicine, with the sacred mushroom, and we've led a little over 22, I think we're up to 24 now, where we've led big ceremonies, large ceremonies like 10, 15, 20, 30 people at a time. And right now in my life, we are really going in deep, working with the tribes, having the indigenous come here to Kentucky and leading ceremony with ayahuasca. And my wife and I, our family, our team is a really big part of these ceremonies. It's almost like a beautiful mixture of Kentucky and the Amazon rainforest, as far as the music and the sound and the animals that come into the ceremony that you see. And so, yeah, I can't wait to just really just be a lighthouse and share my life more with you. Really, that's just what I'm realizing is some of the best medicine for people is not pushing your life on anyone, but just really just opening the door into your life, into nature for me. So yeah.
I love that. And what you posted from the last ceremony that just wrapped up for you last weekend looked amazing. And that prayer that you posted from the chief of the tribe, man, it was really, really powerful. Even though I couldn't understand a word he was saying, I still felt very loved. I felt seen and I felt nurtured. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, he's really excited to work with a lot of the moms here. Like he's really, I think he sees it as like just this new connection into this whole new space, you know. And he's used to working with a certain demographic, and there's lots of moms, but I think he's excited at the fact of like, wow, there's like a group of these like passionate moms that I've talked about a lot of times that I feel like is just some of the best people to work with, just because of like just your enthusiasm, and just your protective nature as a mom in general. It really works well with where we're moving in this space. So.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. And not to mention, who better to change the world than moms? We have parents, well, all parents, no
Hmm.
offense, but moms in particular have really this special role in the world as far as
Hmm.
nurturing and raising our children and really creating a shift in the generational paradigm. So yeah, it's exciting to be able to work so closely with such a powerful group of individuals. And yeah, a little bit about me and where I come from. So my background is in education. I've worked with adults for, I mean, gosh, probably 15 years now on uh, teaching and learning and behavior modification and information synthesis. So my background is a little more type A, which I love how we complement each other so well, Grizz, because I'm very like pragmatic and I've always had my head in the clouds a little bit, but like very determined to have my feet on the ground too. And and I brought that into my career as a teacher and then as a university instructor. And I found when I was teaching at the university that I was spending just as much time helping people get over whatever their personal challenges were in order to access the course material as I was focusing on the material itself. So eventually, I felt like my heart was really guiding me to be supporting people with overcoming those challenges full time. And I did a lot of that even at the university, switching a little bit into that role and supporting my fellow faculty members and developing their own strategies to support their own students to help success rates go up. But then, ultimately, I really just felt called to make a shift in my life to have more freedom to really dive into helping people and nurturing people and being part of healing, being part of growth and supporting others and creating that infrastructure for success and for healing and movement in their life. So 2 years ago, I left the university to launch my own coaching business, and but also with that, kind of in that time frame, several years ago now, getting my certification as a core energy coach and using that energy consciousness paradigm in order to create all of this consciousness raising content and support for people on their healing journey. And it was also around that time that I started using psychedelics therapeutically. And I mean, it sounds cliche to say that psychedelics changed my life or saved my life, but they really did. It was it was a shift in my own timeline that would not have happened without it. Um, on my own healing journey, I've worked through some pretty deep layers and peeling back some pretty deep wounds and really building awareness around that. And it was when I started microdosing that things just turned upward for the better on an internal landscape. Now, that's not to say that my life just suddenly became so easy and there are no issues, but really what happened is internally, I experienced this shift and I'm now able to handle so much more than I was before I started microdosing. No matter what comes up in my life now, I'm calm inside. I'm grounded, right? I'm able to remain in control of my nervous system and my reactions. And that has been huge for how I show up as a parent, for how I show up as a spouse, for how I show up in my business, for clients, for group members, right? I just feel like my overarching goal is to emanate love and to be loving and be present and be experiencing joy and this amazing present moment with the people that I'm in contact with, and even with those that I'm not. Just knowing that my energy sent out into the world makes a difference. So yeah, microdosing is profound. And so that's part of the reason why I've dedicated my life and my career to helping normalize, right? Helping create safe access to this pathway for people, because it's so important that we have holistic options, that we have plant based alternatives that work for mental health. And not only that, but we have a way to work with the medicine. There's many ways to work with the medicine. What I do is just one, but I do know that it's extremely effective. And I'm excited to be unpacking all of that. So that's a little bit about me and my journey to get here,
Yeah.
and what I bring to the table.
Awesome. Yeah, you made me think of so many memories that I'm just going to share one or two quickly. But it's it's really interesting that I just realized, and this should be exciting for a lot of the moms, the new moms on this journey, but I just realized that microdosing was the very start of my journey with all of these plant medicines, the ayahuasca and the tribe. I was just thinking back, something you said made me think of a memory of a good friend of mine that's actually really involved with our ceremonies. He came to the office and had a pill and was like, "Hey, I'm microdosing." And that was like right at the same time we started hosting. That was right before we started hosting this medicine man out of Peru coming to Kentucky. And I never really put that together, strangely enough. But I've done mushrooms in the past, but it was that time microdosing. It was a new thing for me, and obviously it had a profound impact in my life. So just encouragement for those moms, because my life has totally transformed since then. So
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a powerful medicine for sure. Yeah, well, I'm excited to talk a little bit more about the process of microdosing. It's one of the kind of the foundational aspects or pillars of any psychedelic experience, right? There's kind of three of them. There's your set, there's your setting, and then there's how much you're taking. And in this conversation, we are going to focus solely on psilocybin. Certainly, there are other substances like LSD that other people do microdose therapeutically. However, we are going to focus on psilocybin for this conversation because that is what we predominantly work with, both individually and with the members of the group. So,
my
yeah.
days with LSD are over. Sorry if I rub anyone the wrong way. I don't have anything against it, but just in the medicine space, um, just it just feels more natural, the mushrooms. But hey, there's a place for all the medicines, and I have nothing bad to say about it. But
Mhm.
I have, as the more I get into the ayahuasca, the mushrooms, the hape, the tobacco, just things that are from the earth. It really shows contrast in the difference of the experience with
Mhm.
LSD and those types.
Yeah, mushrooms resonate a little more with me as well, I think for similar reasons, although I have heard that LSD can be more effective for, like, say, ADHD, people who have ADHD. But I
Hmm.
only know that anecdotally, and I don't have any personal experience with that. But yeah, as far as set and setting, maybe some of you have heard those terms or know what they mean. When we're talking about set specifically, we're talking about mindsets. We're talking about the state of your inner landscape. Um, And then when we're talking about setting, we're talking about your physical environment. Where are you? What are your surroundings like? And both of those things have a humongous part to play in any psychedelic journey, whether you're doing a macro or large dose or you're doing a micro dose. You always want to be mindful of your set and setting. Grizz, I think you said you had a story that you wanted to share about set and setting.
Yes. So let's see here. Yes. Okay. I didn't have anything written down. I had to recall. So yeah, I have a bunch of different stories. Which one was I going to share? So so I've done the medicine by myself around, just various numbers of people, from 1 to 40. And I noticed my hardest experience was by myself. And so if you are doing even microdosing by yourself, I just wanted to put this into perspective, because for even someone like me that I feel is very experienced with the medicine in very large and small doses, even for me, when I'm by myself, um, it is a little more difficult and challenging. And so I say that just because there's so much value in having uh, guides and people that are coaching you and supporting you. And so I was able to work through a lot of different things myself, but someone that's new, that doesn't have the tools that Amanda and I have, I can really see where, a lot of people might quit or have bad experiences with the medicine and then never come back. And so I just share that because you're not alone, and you're in the right place to have that expert guidance to help coach you on this journey. So
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about dosing specifically, ranges of doses. So, when you are talking about psilocybin mushrooms and using them therapeutically, one of the big choices that you have to make is how much you're going to take. And each range, each dose range kind of has an ideal um, uh, kind of setting or reason or objective maybe that you might want to consider using that particular dose range for. So we're going to start at the top, um, and work our way down into microdose territory. So the first category is called the heroic dose. So this is 5 grams and up. And yeah, Grizz, you have a lot more experience with this than I do, especially being a ceremony leader and guiding people through their own macro doses. So yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about the heroic dose range and what it feels like, and anything else you want to add?
yeah, so this dose, I wouldn't recommend uh, doing alone for anyone that's inexperienced. But this dose, I don't expect anyone to be working with anytime soon. It might be something that we get into in the higher level mentorship when we have our one-on-one, face-to-face, in-person ceremony here. So for those of you that join us for the sacred mushroom ceremony, uh, that's something that we'll evaluate on a case-per-case basis. Some people have done the 5 grams in our ceremonies, and some people elect for 3 grams, and that's kind of the dosing that is the ceremonial dose, that 3 to 5. But the 5 in particular it's an out of body experience, and so you definitely, I highly recommend having someone there with you. Not that you're going to be just totally out of control, but you just want someone there in case you're trying to lay your head down on a glass table and you think it's a pillow, right? And so your mind, you're extremely altered, but you're still safe. It's not like you're out of control, and you experience things like ego death, You really disassociate from a lot of things. I've had in ceremony where I start to become pixelated and slowly lose my sense of self, and I just blend in into the universe. And so, yeah, you're completely disconnecting from reality, and you eventually come back, and it's a beautiful experience, but it's one that should definitely be traversed with a guide.
Yeah, gosh, we could probably do a whole episode just on ego dissolution because
Hmm.
it's such a powerful thing. And there's a lot of research that says that having that experience of ego dissolution can be insanely helpful for PTSD or for particularly deep traumatic situations. I know my own experience with ego dissolution. It's a little freaky when it's happening. You don't know what's happening because you're not yourself. Specifically when we say ego death or ego dissolution, it is the all sense of self completely evaporating. You are, like Grizz said, one with the universe. You have no concept of you. You have no concept of your life, your friends, your family, like everything. Like it's like you zoom out by about 1 billion miles, light years, and you are just one with the fabric of the universe. And it's very powerful and very intense. And typically that is experienced at that heroic level. Not everybody will, though. Ego death doesn't happen every time you would take a heroic dose, but it can, and it can be very therapeutic on the other side of it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So megadose,
Hmm.
that's 3.5 grams up to 5 grams. And
Hmm.
so this is the dose that we work with in a ceremonial setting. Sometimes people will elect for, and we'll get into this, but 2 grams to start the ceremony, and they kind of dip their toes in the water before they jump in. But typically, this is the dosage that we're working with in ceremony, and you still have the potential for that ego death. You have the potential for heavy you know, hallucinations, and at the same time, it's not a guarantee. Like Amanda said, it's not a guarantee that you're going to have this ego death. Sometimes you don't have visions at all. And so I found with all of these ranges of doses, every experience is different. And as we get into the microdose, it's not like you're going to have these huge fluctuations in the way you feel, but just every day, every time you take the medicine, it's just a new teaching. And so it's really beautiful. And especially in ceremony, there's possibly a sense of loss of time. You could also have an out of body experience. I've had an experience where I looked up and the spirit of ayahuasca, the snake, was over top of me, and I looked up and it opened its mouth and swallowed me, and I came out of my body and was looking down at my body, and then for maybe 2 or 3 seconds, and then I like got sucked back into my body, and I didn't know if I was like breathing. I felt like I was like dead, but I came back into my body and was breathing, and had just the most beautiful, powerful experience. It sounds scary, uh, but you hear this when people are about to die. It's like a just this sense of calmness, and until you really experience it, it's hard to explain. But there is just this sense of calmness, even though you're like, you know looking back, there was this massive giant snake about to eat me. There was just this calmness and surrender, and it really pushed me to just really give up, and put my trust in God, put my trust in this medicine. And it was a really beautiful experience. And so this 3 to 5 dose is is what we work with in ceremony. And this is useful for a wide range of things: PTSD, all types of disorders. If you're having issues with relationships, I've had people come that were alcoholics that after they left my ceremony that I led, my wife and I, they to this day are still not drinking. So it has a lot of positive therapeutic benefits. And if you have more questions on, if this might help you with what you're going through, just reach out to Amanda and I. But I tell people all the time, if the medicine cannot fix you, I don't know what can. And I honestly feel that in my heart.
I love that. Yeah, for sure. The medicine with you hit on a key point, right? You were somewhere in there, it stuck out to me that you were willing to let go. And that is what the medicine, I think, really teaches us, is how to let go in the sake of healing, in the sake of wholeness. And there's a lot of research around this range dose right now. I think when they do a lot of the PTSD, or when they do the research around people who are facing maybe really scary situations around mortality or cancer or other life-threatening illnesses, that when they do this range of a dose, that sense of calmness that you were talking about, they no longer fear death. They feel liberated from that constant sense of anxiety. So it's very powerful, and it has the ability to really get into very deep layers of your subconscious and ripple outward then once you come back to your regular life and do really good and robust integration, integration will be its whole other episode. But yeah, absolutely. So that's the mega dose. Not
Yeah.
common. Don't do those all the time. This is like special occasion, a ceremony, maybe a couple times a year, once a year, maybe once in your life. It really depends on your situation.
I would even throw in the 2 gram. I mentioned 2 grams is what some people start with. And that's a moderate dose, 2 grams up to 3.5 grams. That's a nice sized solid dose. And a lot of people will do that in ceremony. And so you'll have a lot of the same experience at that 2 and 3 as you will the 3, 5 to 4 range. Once you start getting up into the 4.5, 5, you're going to have a lot. You're going to notice a big difference in your experience. The 4.5, 5 grams compared to 2, 2.5, even 3 grams. And so, I just wanted to share that and kind of lump that 2 grams all the way up to 4 or 5 grams is that ceremonial dose.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's useful for the same things as well. That 2 grams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing that I often hear, especially with microdoses, is people have this belief that more means it's working better. In the case of psychedelics, more is not more. Sometimes more can be too much or overwhelming for your system. So right in that moderate dose, which Grizz is what you're kind of taking us into right now, that moderate dose, which is between 2 and 3.5 grams, that's where a lot of really powerful spiritual consciousness healing work can be done. And yeah, I would say when I've done ceremony, I've been in that range, 2 to 3.5. The really big doses, I've only done a couple of times, and I'll know when I'm ready to do it again. But my healing journey, it's very intuitive, and you'll find too, as you're moving along your healing journey, you'll start to learn how to listen to your psyche, to your soul, and you'll know when maybe you're ready for a bigger experience or not. Maybe you never will, and that's okay too. You don't have to do these big experiences, but with that moderate dose, you're still like in the world, right? You're still of the world, you're still in the world, but you are opened up to this other level of experience, this other aspect of reality, really. So you might have mild hallucinations. Obviously, you're not going to be getting behind the wheel of a car or anything on this dose. You're very much settled in a specific place. You're highly intentional about it, but yeah, you might have some minor hallucinations. Maybe when you close your eyes, you see some cool images or movement, visualizations kind of happening organically. And again, time can be distorted. You might feel like, maybe you're in a 3-hour ceremony, but it feels like you've been there for 3 days.
Mhm. And yeah, a lot of people in my experience on even this dose, like you mentioned, you're able to get up and go to the bathroom, and you're very present. And I found working with the medicine, and I don't know if it's just with experience, but you'll learn to work with the medicine in the waves. So I've found that it comes in waves, right? So there might be a point where it's like you can't go to the bathroom, right? But that only lasts for a few minutes, and you're really processing and doing a lot of really good work. And after 5 or 10 minutes, you kind of like, you know, wake up out of that slumber, which you still are very capable of like snapping out of it at any time, I feel like, in my experience. But it's like Amanda said, you're surrendering to the experience and just allowing it to come and just going with the flow. And then slowly that lesson will pass, and then you'll come to more present. And then that's the time where it's like, oh, I almost feel like I'm sober now. And then you go to the bathroom and you come back and you feel like you've been sober, but as soon as you sit down, you start going through the medicine again. And so it kind of comes in waves, in my experience, at that level.
Yeah, I can remember feeling a similar way, the waves, as you're working through various aspects of whatever journey you're taking with the medicine as a
Mhm.
tool.
This next dose, you might be able to talk a little bit more about, and even as we move down in the other doses. But just briefly, this is the hardest dose I've been. Well, you know what? I spoke too soon. Okay, so the museum dose, 0.5 to 1.5 grams. It's still so. I was gonna say that 0.5 ish, 0.7 range is always like this middle fuzzy area for me that I feel a lot of just anxiety, discomfort, and it's almost like you haven't pierced the veil completely. And once you do, you poke through the veil, boom, it's like, I'm finally here. And so I've found, we've listed the museum dose as zero point 0.5 to 1.5, but in my experience, 1 gram is what I recommend for some of the moms that think they're ready and have a little experience with the medicine, but they think they're ready to just sit with it themselves. It's the dose that we do for a lot of our micro ceremonies, and it's just enough to where you have the visuals, the colors are enhanced. I've found a lot of people, their communication with nature and the trees and the animals intensifies, but that 1 gram is not too much to where you're out of control. So you're very, very much in control. And I love the 1 gram dose.
Hmm. Yeah, I like everything you said, and I feel like 1 gram is a great dose to sit with yourself and do some strong work. Um, this might sound a little crazy, so I struggle with letting go of control. Being kind of type A, I like to be very organized and structured, but yet I'm also like a free spirit, so it's constantly this internal struggle. But when I'm doing, when I'm taking a dose around this range, I get nervous because I don't want to take it to a point where I don't feel in control anymore. Like that's my, my thoughts, my cognitive brain saying like, hold on, like what if something bad happens? And so I agree with you that, 0.5 to like 1 gram tends to be like a anxiety inducing range. And I've experienced that, but sometimes I do that intentionally. And this is where it's going to sound really crazy, because what I'll do is I want to bring up that discomfort because it helps me focus on bringing up other areas of discomfort in my subconscious so I can work through things on an experiential level, because even at that dose, you're opened up. Your consciousness is open. So personally, what I do is I'll take, maybe like zero point 0.5, I'd say, is kind of like my sweet spot for that range of a dose. And I'll go on a 20-mile bike ride and
Mhm.
I'll just like let things emerge, let things come up, and try not to be a cruise director for my emotions or my own healing, right? Just kind of let it emerge organically. But that discomfort of the medicine helps me stimulate my own frequencies. But that being said, yes, breaking through that threshold, getting to that 1 gram is way better. It's just not something that as a mom, I'm going to do on a regular basis. Whereas
Mhm.
like I can do half a gram,
Yeah.
go out for a long bike ride and be ready to make dinner when I get home, you know?
Yeah, 1 gram is to me a ceremonial dose as far as that 1 gram, like you mentioned. You want to sit and really, you know, I always recommend having some type of sacred prayer protection, and this is stuff that we get into in the mentorship. But just sitting and 1 gram, like you said, is not something that you want to be going out and riding a bike. But I can see where yes, that point 0.5, point 0.4, point 0.5 is like that perfect dose where you can go deep. And then also before we move to the next dose, I found that exercising in the medicine helps smooth it out and it doesn't just get settled in one spot. And so with that point 0.5, I was thinking, man, that's maybe a little high. But when you're exercising, I feel like the medicine is not as strong as that dose as if compared to just sitting down and not moving. So,
Yeah, and oh man, I cannot tell you that the levels of meditation I've gotten to when I was moving while on the medicine, like just and for not even having been on that much of a dose, like it's been really profound, some of the epiphanies and realizations and just healing I've been able to experience. Yeah. Well, let's jump into the the
kind
mini
of
dose.
what we're about, right? What the
I was.
mentorship is about. The
Oh,
minis and the micro doses.
yes. Yep. So with that mini dose, that's kind of what I was just talking about, 0.25 to 0.75 of a gram. So that's more than a microdose. Some of you are taking that as a microdose. And as Grizz was saying, that is the range where you might feel more anxiety, you might feel more restlessness, you might feel like you're a little bit stoned. You will start to feel it at that effect. Now, this is sub hallucinogenic. You're not going to have hallucinations on this mini dose, this 1/4 gram to 3/4 of a gram, but you will feel like you're on something. You will feel, you probably don't want to be driving at this dose for sure. Like, do not operate
Mhm.
any heavy machinery. This is like you're home, or you're like, on a walk or a hike or something. You're not responsible for safety. um,
Yeah, this
because
is the dose I personally recommend, like, would not recommend for new moms. Like, new moms coming into this space, 0.25 to 0.75 is that dose that I think scares a lot of people away.
yeah,
And
agree.
until you start working with the medicine, like Amanda said, uh, and you're intentional with why you're doing this dose, and you're
Mhm.
intentionally doing it to bring up these feelings, I would stay away from that dose.
Yeah, I completely agree, because when we are talking about a true microdose, this is 0.05 of a gram to 0.25 of a gram. So considering we were just talking about 5 grams and up and all the way down, now we're at 0.05, a very, very small amount. And oftentimes people might think that 0.05, well, that's not going to do anything. I do not agree with that, because I have seen, I've heard, I've talked to women that are taking zero point zero 0.05 of a gram and their lives have changed. They're managing their emotions differently. They're experiencing their triggers differently, with space between event and reaction within their bodies. They are empowered, right? They're feeling free from zero point zero 0.05 of a gram. You're not going to feel that dose. You're not going to feel much of anything. Maybe you'll feel a little calmer. You might feel a little more present, right? But you're not going to have any cognitive distortion, or you're perfectly able to move about your day as a normal human being, doing all of your normal things on zero point zero 0.05. You're not altered. Your judgment isn't altered. Your ability to make safe choices isn't altered. Like, there's nothing altered about your cognitive functioning.
And I think that's the biggest thing to really get through. The main message I feel like that is going to benefit all the moms here, and even me in the beginning of my journey, because I was the same way. Even with alcohol and marijuana growing up, I didn't want to do that because I wanted to be in control. And this dose, this low of a dose, you are totally in control. You are not going to notice anything except when you look back, and this is my experience working with a lot of people, they look back on their day and they're like, wow, I actually had like a really good day. At the time, I wasn't really, aware of it. I was just moving through my day. But when I look back, it was like, wow, all these like the way I reacted to things, it was different. And so, you eventually can become very aware of it. But in my experience in the beginning, you're not going to be as aware of these changes and these feelings until you start working with the medicine. And then you start to, the time difference of when you notice these things is smaller. And so more in the present moment, you're, at least for me, you might start to react the old way, but the medicine just lights a new neural pathway up in your brain where you react differently and you say something you've never said before, and it just makes the day go so much better. Uh, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the part that's so hard to explain, because I remember when I first took my first microdose, I was a little nervous. I was like, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to feel okay? You know, am I going to not feel in control? Because I'll also tell you, I'm super sensitive to cannabis. Like, a gummy is, I think, what, 10 milligrams? I can take like a quarter of that and be like, that's my limit. So I've always been so sensitive to cannabis, but with microdosing, man, it's a totally different um, experience. Even if I'm in that slightly perceptual range, right, of like 0.25 to zero point 0.5 grams, which I do occasionally, not every day, but occasionally I'll do that amount. Um, Even then, I never feel not in control, like, ever,
hmm So
which
as
is.
far as the specific, dosing, would you recommend, where would you start? Would you start low and would you jump up a lot, or just, how would you recommend for moms as far as starting and maybe a starting point?
Hmm. Yeah, in my experience, it's best to start at that zero point zero 0.05 of a gram, that 50 milligrams, because what you don't want to have happen is take a too high of a dose and experience something called body load, which is where you're feeling like that heaviness, or you're feeling tired, or you're feeling anxious, and just your body is kind of stressed out from the amount. So 50 milligrams, which is zero point zero 0.05 of a gram, is where I would start. And after you've been taking that for a couple of weeks and you're tracking your progress, you're tracking your emotional goals, which is something we support you with in the mentorship that is open right now for registration. As you're tracking that, you're going to be able to make an educated decision as to whether to go up or down. Yes, some people go down from 50 milligrams. Some people go to 25 or even 20 milligrams, and that is what they need. That's their sweet spot. But if you do go up, I don't recommend moving up by more than 25 milligram increments because, again, you want to avoid that body load as your brain is adapting to this new all of this neuroplasticity that's happening and your ability to create new emotional habits and thought patterns. As that's going on, you don't want your body to be stressed out because you're working through maybe some pretty deep stuff along the way. Now I know I had planned to cover a lot of stuff, so I think we're gonna have to do a separate episode on.
We're gonna do another one of these, I think.
I think, yeah, we're going to do another one on like dosing schedules and tracking. But one
Mm-hmm.
thing I want to cover is a big question I get from people is how long does it take to start working? Which is fair, right? I want to feel better. I'll tell you in my experience. Um, I was it was a year between my macro dose experiences for healing, and then I went off all my pharmaceutical medications, and then for a year I wasn't on anything, but I was doing the work. I was out there. Well, I was microdosing cannabis therapeutically for the reason of working through some traumas and trying to like get under some layers and really support my authentic self and emerging. But man, that year was like a dark night of the soul for me. It was hard. It was productive. It was like childbirth, right? It's very painful, but it's productive and something amazing happens out of that pain. But that birthing process for me of that emerging self was extremely painful. And I was having all sorts of emotional flashbacks. I was having a lot of anxiety. My depression was really strong, but I was so determined. Like I always had this belief that within me somewhere was this perfect and whole person, and I was going to connect with her. So for a year, I did that work after my macro experiences and into you know being off all medications. And then it was after that year when I started when I found safe access. Right, that was the thing. I didn't know where to get it. I would have done it sooner. I just didn't know where to get it. When I found a place to a place that I trusted, and I was able to get the medicine, and it was like a couple days even before like my emotional flashbacks like pretty much stopped happening. And within a month, I was feeling really emotionally stable. And I was still leaning into the work, right? Like I'm still practicing healing. Like healing is a practice. It's not a process. It's not a destination. But microdosing creates this internal stability for me. And I'd say that started within a few weeks, a month maybe. And
Mm-hmm.
that's
What?
what I see too from other people. I see that from other moms that I've talked to or people where it's like changed their life. It's within probably a few weeks or a month, maybe 2 months.
Yeah, kind of wrapping things up. I'm just so excited about this mentorship because of what we both bring to the table, the experience. I would not want to be anywhere else, just the people that are surrounding us in this space. Like, this is my life. I don't, I left the 9 to 5. Like, I've burned the boats. This is my life. And I just wanted to share that as far as it relates to dosage, my wife, who has done way more ceremonies than me, surprisingly. There was a year where she traveled a lot and went to a lot of plant medicine ceremonies. Someone like her with a lot of experience with high doses of the medicine, she actually has to do that really, really small 0.025 dose. The point, even that 0.05, that 50 milligrams that we recommend for a lot of moms starting out is too high for her. And so that's one mistake that I found a lot of moms are doing is they do that 0.5 and they go up, or they go to the instead of going down, because like Amanda said, they think that 0.025 is just way too low of a dose. So I just share that because it's not about really, the size of the dose. It's really adjusting it as we do in the mentorship to fit your personal needs. So
Yeah, absolutely. And that is one of the things I do love about this program that we've put together, is that it's so hands-on and supportive of everyone's personal journey, because everybody's journey is different, right? For some people, 50 milligrams might be perfect. Others, maybe it's 75, right? But you won't know that until you start taking it and until you start tracking. It's the tracking. We want the data. We want to look back and see trends over time to see if adjusting up or down makes the most sense based on your emotional experience, based on what you're physically experiencing, right? What are the benefits? Are there any symptoms coming up that are unpleasant? And then, yeah, in the community, for, with the program, there's a really great place to go and share anything that you might be experiencing. And that's really special because in our current climate, where there's so much misinformation and judgment around this particular pathway, which there's nothing wrong with this pathway. This pathway is beautiful. It's natural. It should be legal. It should be normalized. It should be available and
yeah,
accessible to anyone who wants it and needs it. I believe that wholeheartedly. And that is why we are putting together this whole program to be able to help you do this in a safe, effective, all natural way.
awesome. So how can people sign up? Can you put a link in this video, or the people watching, I guess we'll pin a post in the group for people to sign up. And then also, I guess, emails, if people aren't on the email list, to make sure they sign up and send us their email.
Yes. I will put a link in the show notes for this podcast. We'll also put this on YouTube, so I'll put a link in the description there to the landing page. But it's www.ahamo.com/the sacred microdose. So that'll be listed below. So I won't spell it out for you now. But yeah, you can go there to learn more about the program, what it entails, and then the next step would be to have a chat with either Grizz or myself to see if it's a good fit for you at this point in your life, and how this program might support you in meeting your own emotional and healing goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's one thing. Just wrapping up again, I said that a lot, but the call, setting up a call with us. This is a no pressure. This is really a clarity call, to see if you're a good fit for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that with a lot of my ceremonies. When we first started, I was taking anybody that was coming in, and now I'm at a point, and Amanda and I both, with this program, we're at a point in our life where I'm interviewing you to see if you make the best fit for the vision and what we're trying to build, because we're not just taking anyone. It's there's certain people that I found I get really good results with. And so on this clarity call, if you're really tapped into nature and I feel your heart, we might extend an invite into this mentorship. But this clarity call really is for you. We might find that I know someone that would be a better fit for you, or I kind of, maybe Amanda and I send you some PDFs, some free resources for you to work on, because you're not ready for the mentorship. So this isn't a call, high pressure sales call. This is a clarity call to deepen our relationship with you, wherever you are on the journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We just want to make sure that we're bringing people in that we can help, that we feel like we can really help be successful and supportive. And so both of us are just coming with love and openness and nurture wherever, meeting you wherever you are, whether that's ready to walk through the doors or whether that's other pathways. But we are just here and rooting for you in this space, in this natural healing space. So, well, awesome. Well, I think this wraps up our first podcast episode. If anyone watching live, we have a few people watching us live. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And then anything that comes up, if you're watching this later on YouTube or you're listening to the podcast, you're watching this as a replay in our group, feel free to post any questions that you have in the comments. We will definitely do another episode going into a lot more information around dosing, scheduling, all sorts of relevant information to help keep you safe and informed so you can make your own decisions from your place of most clarity and highest self.
Woo! Right at an hour. Perfect.
Nice.
Man, you couldn't have done it any better, Amanda.
Sweet. Good job, Grizz. Well, awesome. Then I will talk to you next time. We'll plan another live session for next week. And otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.